Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Jessica Devereaux in Baltimore. Pakistan is in mourning after a suicide bomber targeted Christians in the city of Lahore, killing at least 70 people on Easter Sunday. The majority of the victims were in fact Muslims, and the Pakistani Taliban, also known as the TPP, is claiming responsibility for the attack. Now the Pakistani government is responding with force in the area of Punjab, where sectarian Sunni militants are suspected of residing. This paramilitary crackdown would give authorities special legal powers to conduct raids and interrogate suspects. Joining us now to discuss all of this is Saadia Toor. She's an associate professor at the City University of New York Graduate Center, and she's also the author of the book, State of Islam, Culture and Cold War Politics in Pakistan. Thank you so much for joining us, Saadia.
Hi, Jessica. I'm happy to be here.
So let's take a look at the root causes of this attack, Saadia. The Taliban in Pakistan say it's meant to target Christians with this type of attack, but we clearly see that it's mostly affecting Muslims. The majority of the death toll were Muslims, actually. So what do you see as really being behind this aggression? And I think it would be helpful for folks to just distinguish the motives of the Pakistan Taliban and those Sunni militants that we mentioned in Punjab.
Jessica, this is a very important question, and I want to actually just clarify some of the things. One is that it's not the TPP as a whole, the main body of the TPP, that has taken responsibility for this attack. It's a splinter group called the Majlisul Ahrar, and it was formed almost only about a year and a half ago. It split from the main TPP because of differences between its leader and the main leader, Mullah Fazlullah of the TPP. So they are actually a bit of a wild card in all of this. So what we see with them actually is this really new development where you have the Pakistani Taliban, or groups that are connected to the Pakistani Taliban, that are actually based in the federally administered tribal areas, FATA, which generally have been up until now, and the TPP as a whole, targeting the state and military. And even the attack on the school in Peshawar in December 2014 that the TPP took responsibility for was actually an attack, they said, in retaliation for the children that have been dying in military operations in FATA and drone attacks in FATA. So typically what you see in terms of the attacks on minorities in Pakistan is, as you very rightly pointed out, generally those are the groups that come from southern Punjab that are what we call the sectarian Sunni outfits. But what we have here with the Majlisul Ahrar is an offshoot of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, not the TTP itself, but an offshoot, resorting to attacking minority groups. So this is something very new that we're seeing. And I think it's part of what has happened in the last few years, where these two very distinct sets of militants, one based in FATA and seeing the Pakistani military as its main target, and the ones based in southern Punjab, like their agendas sort of meshing. As for why you think that they attacked a public park and therefore sort of resulted in majority Muslim casualties, even though they very specifically said they meant to target Christians, one reason for that is that in the wake of the attacks that they had planned and carried out in the last couple of years on Christian churches in Lahore and Shia mosques elsewhere, the Punjab government actually has stepped up security in churches on Sundays and major holidays, Christian holidays. So I think that strategically they decided to target a public park, and these people really are not interested ultimately in who they target. So the issue of whether they're targeting Muslims or Christians is kind of immaterial for them.
Okay, let's talk about the role of the Pakistani government themselves, because as I mentioned, there's now a military crackdown, which is a response to the bombing, and some could maybe argue that this is just like a vicious cycle. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure, and I think the point to make before I get into details is to distinguish between the Pakistani government, which is sort of the political parties, and in particular right now the party in power, the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Group, otherwise known as PMLN, and the Prime Minister right now is Nawaz Sharif, versus the military which always is sort of a shadow presence in Pakistan, even when there is a democratic government at the head. So the response that we're seeing, the crackdown that you're talking about, is actually one that the military has done, and it has done that without consultation or okay from the government. So what we're seeing is actually a lot of tension between the military and the government. And many people are rightly pointing to this as sort of the beginnings of a creeping coup in Pakistan, where the military is sort of basically flexing its muscles. And it's been wanting to get into southern Punjab for a while, and it's used this event, this tragic event, as an excuse to do that. Because, as I was trying to point out before, the group that has taken responsibility for this isn't based in southern Punjab. Although, of course, there are many extremist groups of the sectarian variety that generally are the ones that are targeting religious minorities and non-Sunni Muslims are based in southern Punjab. So that's the sort of background to this. As to the sort of question of whether this is even an appropriate response to what has happened, I mean, I think that is a much broader discussion. But just to give you a sense, the Pakistani military has repeatedly launched military operations in the wake of some tragedy or the other. And the biggest military operation to date that it launched in FATA was the one that's currently ongoing, called Zarb-e-Azd. And there have been several before that. One in Swat in 2009 is probably the one that people in the US will be most familiar with. And what we've seen with these military operations is that all they managed to accomplish is a lot of displacement. So the current Zarb-e-Azd has displaced up to 1 million people. Because FATA is also on the margins of the Pakistani nation state, it isn't sort of covered by the Pakistani constitution. It sort of exists in this liminal zone. And so people from FATA are not fully citizens of Pakistan. And so a carryover from the British colonial days is that there is a system by which they are ruled. It's a very colonial system by which they're ruled from the center. And so there's a real political issue at stake here in terms of, which is something that the TTP really cites as the reason why they're constantly attacking military and state targets, because they are in retaliation for the attacks that they see by the Pakistani military on their people. And also, of course, for the drone attacks that it rightly sees as the Pakistani state supporting the US drone attacks. So I think, the military, it's something, the launch of this operation in Punjab, even though a lot of people in Pakistan and outside are lauding it as, finally something that the Pakistani state is doing to curb this issue of religious violence and extremism, I would be very, very cautious in seeing it in the salutary light, because the thing that we have seen with Pakistani military operations in the past is that they are very limited in their scope in terms of who they target, because many of these groups the state continues to see as assets. And, the whole sort of binary of the good Taliban, bad Taliban, that is a very flexible one. Groups float in and out of that. But really, I think what we're seeing in this particular instance is the military doing a show of force vis-a-vis the Nawaz Sharif government.
All right, Saadia, I want to pause the conversation here, and in our second part, let's talk about the role of outside forces like the United States in creating this level of instability in Pakistan. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching the Real News Network.